I used to hear my dad calling for me across the track, his voice slicing through every shout from the stands. I ran because he swore I was built for it, because when he cheered I felt weightless. After he passed, it was as if the world dropped into slow motion. The house didn't mourn so much as rearrange itself. My mother, Evelyn, began sanding down every part of me that didn't match the picture she preferred. My running shoes disappeared, replaced with dainty flats. My jerseys vanished under piles of skirts. Makeup kits took the place of medals I'd earned. "Girls your age shouldn't be running all over creation," she'd mutter, tugging at my hair, careful never to meet my eyes in the mirror. At first I assumed she was grieving in strange sideways ways. But what started as an odd phase hardened into routine. 3 years later she married Thomas, a man with neat manners, polite smiles, and a daughter, Chloe. 9 years old, all lace dresses and soft curls. Exactly the kind of girl my mother had always wanted. Chloe arrived with pastel luggage and a syrupy, imitated sweetness she only used when adults were present. The minute they stepped out of the room, her whole face changed. She hid my notes the night before a huge exam. She dumped nail polish across my favorite track shirt. She unplugged my alarm so I'd rush out the door late and disheveled. And every time I tried to report what she'd done, Evelyn brushed it aside with the same tired line. "She's just a kid, Harper. Stop being dramatic." Thomas would nod in agreement, as if that ended the conversation. One morning after Chloe hogged the bathroom for nearly an hour, I ended up washing my face at the kitchen sink. Evelyn yelled at me for making a production of things. Each little slight stacked itself on top of the last until I learned to shrink, to become quiet and unassuming, someone she could overlook without having to feel anything about it. By high school I stopped expecting fairness. I stayed late at the library to save money. I hunted down scholarships on my own. I kept my grades spotless because it was the only thing no one could twist into a flaw. Most afternoons I'd head straight to my grandmother Lorraine's house, just a few blocks away but worlds apart. Warm lamps, lace curtains glowing gold, the smell of coffee, her humming as she knitted. She looked at me the way no one else did. "You okay, honey?" she'd ask. I always said yes. She never believed me. On the morning of my graduation, I stopped by her house for a moment of quiet. While I poured tea, she stepped into the hall to answer the phone. I didn't mean to overhear, but the hallway carried sound too well. It was my mother's voice on the line, sharp and purposeful. She wasn't celebrating my day. She wasn't mentioning my future. She was outlining hers. "Just a little longer," she snapped. "Once Mother's gone, the house is mine. Chloe can finally get the life she deserves. Harper. She'll manage. She always does. She'll land somewhere. Somewhere. Not home. Not with her. Just somewhere." I stood frozen, tea cooling in my hands, something hollow settling into my chest. By the time I arrived on campus, that phone call had carved out a quiet space inside me where pride should have been. I tried to absorb the excitement, the speeches, the noise, but her words clung to me like a film over everything. When my name was called, I crossed the stage feeling both visible and unseen, like I existed only in theory. After the ceremony, Evelyn waited near the steps, arms folded as if she'd been forced to attend. Her expression didn't soften. It rarely ever had. "You're paying for Chloe's college," she murmured. "If you won't, don't bother coming back." Her tone wasn't cold, it was practical, like she was reminding me to pick up milk on the way home. And in that instant everything made sense. The years of dismissal, the sabotage, the protection they wrapped around Chloe while handing every responsibility to me, and the cruel clarity of that phone call earlier that morning. She wasn't planning a life that included me. She was planning around my absence. I didn't question her. I didn't ask why. I already knew. The real hurt came when I realized she had erased me long before that moment. I didn't cry when she spoke. I didn't chase after her across the lawn or demand answers. I simply stepped away from the celebration, moving toward the far edge of campus, where the clamor thinned and the wind carried only a faint echo of applause. My gown swished against my ankles with every step, a quiet reminder of all I had earned and all she had reduced to a transaction. I settled under a tall oak tree, the sun drifting behind its branches. Students bustled past, wrapped in joy and family, in the euphoria of the day. I sat alone, hands trembling from the words that had reshaped my place in Evelyn's world. "Once Mother's gone, the house is mine." Those words, overheard that morning, weighed on me far more than the threat she had made at graduation. She hadn't just made plans without me. She had built her future on top of me. And in that moment clarity struck. Silence, my silence had always been her weapon. But not today. I reached for my phone. Grandma Lorraine answered on the second ring. "Harper, is everything okay, darling?" Her voice was steady, the kind that holds you upright when you feel like collapsing. That alone cracked something inside me. Something I had been holding tight for years. "Can I come over?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Now." "Of course," she said. "The kettle's already on." I left campus without a word to anyone. The sunlight warmed my skin, but inside everything felt cold, precise, ready. Her house was as it always had been, small, cozy, secure. A place where winter sunlight pools softly on the kitchen counter. When I stepped inside, the scent of chamomile tea wrapped around me like a blanket I hadn't realized I needed. She looked at me, saw the tension etched on my face, and didn't ask questions. "Sit," she said gently. "Start wherever you need to." I spoke slowly at first, then steadier, as though I had rehearsed these words my whole life. The dresses, the nail polish, the alarms, the quiet favoritism, the morning phone call, the threat at graduation. She didn't interrupt. Her hand stayed folded, her eyes soft but steady. When I finished, she reached across the table and squeezed my wrist. "Harper," she said quietly. "I heard that call." I froze. "You what?" She hadn't known the line was open. "I heard every word," Grandma said with a soft sigh. She had slipped. And in that moment the tightness in my chest shifted, from fear to validation. Proof. I had not imagined it. I had not exaggerated. I had not been dramatic. "Come with me," she said. She rose and led me to her bedroom. I followed, unsure of what she intended. She opened a low drawer and pulled out a neat stack of documents, contracts, savings records, property papers. Nothing ornate, nothing theatrical, just the truth. "This house," she said, placing her hand on the top page, "is mine. It always has been, and she knows it. That's why she's been circling, trying to push you out, because she can't control what isn't hers." My breath hitched. She continued, calm, unwavering. "I'm old, Harper. Old enough to have seen people reveal themselves when they think no one is watching. Today she revealed herself. But she forgot one thing. I am watching." She set the papers before me. "We'll fix this," she said, quietly, methodically. She picked up her phone and called her attorney, an old friend from the city. "Appointment for tomorrow," she requested. "Paperwork transfer. We'll update." I opened my mouth to protest, but she shook her head. "Not for revenge, not because she hurt you. Because you've survived more than she ever saw. You've built your life alone and never asked for anything. This house should go to someone who values it." I swallowed hard. The plan unfolded, simple and inevitable. Tomorrow we would go to the notary. The house would be mine. Evelyn would lose what she thought she had guaranteed. Not through confrontation, not through drama, but because she had already written her own undoing. That night I didn't return home. I stayed in the guest room, listening to the quiet clinking of teacups in the kitchen, as Grandma prepared for the next day. No raised voices. No theatrics. Just cold, steady, deliberate control. Silence finally on my terms. The next morning the sky was muted gray, making everything feel slower, inevitable. Grandma Lorraine and I drove in silence. The leather folder with the documents rested on her lap, fingers lightly guarding it. Her posture was calm, resolute, ready. Inside the notary's office, the air smelled of old carpet and paper. A clock ticked steadily. The attorney, a man with silver hair and gentle eyes, greeted her warmly. "Lorraine," he said. "It's been a while." "Yes," she replied, composed. "It's time." The signing was quiet. No drama, no shouting, only the scratch of pen on paper, seals pressed in place. Line by line, the house was transferred to my name. The will was updated to leave everything to me. The attorney asked if she was certain. "I'm old," she said with a small shrug. "Certainty is all I have left." When it was done, she closed the folder and handed it to me. "Let's go home," she said. Not hers, not Evelyn's. Mine. The drive back felt different. Not lighter but clearer, as though the fog that had blurred my life for years had finally lifted. The threat came the moment I stepped off the stage, diploma still warm in my hands. No congratulations, no pride, not even a smile. Just my mother's voice, low, icy, meant only for me. You'll pay for Chloe's college. If you don't come back home. Her words slid neatly between applause and camera flashes, sharp enough to ruin the moment I'd earned. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I simply tightened my grip on my gown and stood still while everyone around us cheered, unaware that my entire future had just been rewritten. What she didn't know was that earlier that morning, I'd overheard something never meant for my ears, something that made her threat feel small in comparison. Growing up, the world hadn't always been so tight around my throat. When I was 10, my life still held color. My dad, Daniel, would wake me before sunrise with a soft knock, so we wouldn't wake anyone. We'd ride through the quiet streets, wheels whispering in unison, the morning air crisp enough to sting. Those moments felt like safety, like something unbreakable. But years have a way of sanding things down, sometimes gently, sometimes cruelly. So when my mother cornered me after graduation, demanding I sacrifice everything I'd worked for, my savings, my scholarships, the life I was building, I didn't remind her of any of it. I just nodded once and stepped back. I watched her attention drift toward Thomas, toward Chloe, toward the life she'd replaced me with long ago. But it wasn't her threat that truly cut. That wound came later. When Grandma and I pulled into the driveway that afternoon, Evelyn's car was already there. She stood on the porch with Thomas and Chloe, arms crossed, jaw tight, like she could smell something slipping out of her control. Grandma got out first. I followed, clutching a folder against my chest. What is this? Evelyn snapped. Why didn't you come home last night? Where were you? I was handling paperwork, Grandma said, calm as ever. Paperwork for what? For the house. Thomas's face shifted. Chloe's smirk vanished. What about the house? Evelyn's voice cracked. It's no longer yours to assume, Grandma replied. She opened the folder, pulled out the notarized deed, and held it out, not to Evelyn but to me. Evelyn snatched it, skimming the page. Her face drained of color. No, this is wrong. This house is supposed to go to me. You said. I said nothing, Grandma answered. You assumed. You're giving my future away to her? Evelyn screamed, pointing at me like I was an intruder. She is your daughter, Grandma said quietly. Something you've forgotten. Thomas stepped forward. Lorraine, think about Chloe. I have, Grandma cut in. For years. You can't do this. Evelyn shouted. You can't just throw us out. Grandma lifted a hand. You have 1 hour. The words dropped like stones. No anger. No shaking. Just a consequence arriving exactly when it needed to. 1 hour to gather your things and leave this house. All of you. Chloe's eyes widened. Thomas froze. Evelyn looked as if the world had tilted beneath her. But Grandma didn't budge. What followed felt like a muted film. Boxes slamming, drawers ripped open, footsteps pounding the stairs, tape ripping, doors swinging. I stood by the front door as they rushed around me. For the first time, their movements weren't aimed at me. They were simply leaving. When the last suitcase hit the porch, Evelyn paused. Her eyes were red. Not from remorse but disbelief. This isn't over, she hissed. Even she didn't seem convinced. Grandma closed the door behind them with a soft, final click. Not a slam. Not a victory lap. Just closure, clean, cold, and overdue. Inside, the silence felt different. It wasn't a punishment anymore. It belonged to me. Through the window, I watched their car pull away. Evelyn gripping the wheel, Thomas staring straight ahead. Chloe curled in the back seat like the universe had betrayed her. None of them looked back. I walked through the house slowly. The rooms breathed easier without them. The living room didn't feel hostile. The kitchen didn't feel like a battleground. Even the air felt lighter. Grandma appeared beside me with 2 mugs of tea. She didn't offer comfort or praise. She just handed me a cup and stood next to me, shoulder to shoulder, watching the empty driveway. That was overdue, she said softly. I know, I whispered. We drank our tea in a silence that felt earned, built not with anger, but with truth, signatures, and the quiet bravery of refusing to disappear anymore. Later, I stepped into the garden. The lavender and damp soil smelled like something honest. I sat on the steps and breathed. For the first time in years, the breath didn't hitch. The quiet inside the house wasn't a threat. It was the beginning. Evelyn always assumed I'd end up somewhere. She just never imagined that somewhere would be here, in the home she thought she'd inherit, standing beside the one person who had never erased me. As their car disappeared down the street, the house exhaled. The keys sat warm in my palm. For the first time, silence felt like safety. For the first time, stepping inside felt like choosing myself. If you've ever rebuilt yourself after being dismissed or erased, you're not the only one.